Are you looking to set and achieve your sales goals? Whether you're a brand new rep in the amazing industry of sales itself, or whether you're experienced and you're just looking to add new customers, add new relationships, this is the show for you this morning. So, as you can kind of tell, happy Thursday to everybody out there. This is Sales Chatter, the logistics podcast with the mission of helping 10,000 logistics sales reps generate a million in less than 12 months in gross profit. Isn't that an amazing task? And we kind of go through these amazing conversations. And one thing that Dan and I have always kind of talked about, it's just not going to be about us. I've been in the industry for about 6 years. Dan has been in here for over 25 to 30 years. And, we like to bring on amazing people from different parts of the industry or even outside of the industry to give you that value, especially on this amazing Thursday morning. So today, I'm excited to have an amazing guest because I've had a couple conversations with him in the background and just kind of seeing his social media strategy, seeing his strategy on sales and his belief on sales is just spectacular that all of us can really take apart from. So we do have the honor this morning of hosting Aneesh Lal. He's a seasoned industry expert with a remarkable track record in sales and marketing. Anish himself has successfully collaborated with industry titans like Coca-Cola and Pinterest, accumulating a wealth of knowledge over his impressive 15-year career. As the founder of the Wishley Group, Anish's mission is crystal clear: to empower small businesses to achieve monumental success. So, get ready this morning as we're going to bring on Anish onto our amazing podcast this morning, all the way from Toronto. So, welcome everybody, and welcome Anish to Sales Chatter Live. What's going on, brother?
Hey man, appreciate you having me on. I'm so pumped for it. That intro music video got me fired up, man. I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's do this.
Oh man, if this was a couple days ago, you would have got like our salsa bachata like in intro, so that would have either got you dancing, but we got pumped up from today. So I want to thank you so much for coming on this morning for our audience because this is going to be a completely different audience for you. Give them a little. I like to kind of call it the origin story. If anybody comic book nerds out there, when you
Oh yeah.
read like all these Marvel and DC and stuff like that. So what's your origin story? And let's hear it, brother.
Yeah, man. So grew up here in Mississauga, Ontario, and living in Toronto now. Big part of me, like sales changed my life, man. Like straight goods between us. I've always been good at sales. I used to be the type that went out a lot, partied a lot, all that side. Next thing you know, I see a credit card debt that just through the roof. I'm like, oh my days, what just happened? And it's one of those things that if you truly master the craft of sales, you can unlock a lot for yourself, for your family. You're able to do things like time freedom, autonomy, like things like that. So I left Pinterest last June and start up my own business, my own sales and marketing consulting company. And it's because of my ability to sell that I've been able to go and sort of create my own destiny. So for those that don't know me at all, I've been in sales for just over 15 years, as Ryan mentioned. Um, I've closed over $50 million of high ticket B2B sales during my time there, whether it's at Coca-Cola, Pinterest, the Weather Network. I worked on tier one enterprise all the way down to SMB and everything in between. So I'm really pumped for the conversation today, man. I hope the audience gets some value out of it for sure.
100%. And just I want the audience to understand that, like we usually kind of bring on like logistics sales reps in our end. But, Anish mentioned earlier in conversation, if you can sell, you can really have this life that you really truly want. And Anish, correct me if I'm wrong here and throughout the conversation, but I truly believe like once you master the craft of selling itself, you can work in any industry possible. Like you mentioned, you work at Pinterest. You're like, you know what? I'm going to go start up my own thing at Wishley Group. And you've been so successful with that. Let's jump right in because today's conversation is really going to be about setting and achieving sales goals. And, we can go a couple ways with this as we're talking backstage. We could talk about like Q4, but I would love to get a mindset because when I was reading about your company, the Wishley Group, you guys help small businesses, right? So
Mhm.
those companies, maybe they're just getting started, they want to scale. They don't know how, there's so many buzzwords out there. There's so many YouTube gurus out there. There's just so much, I don't want to say fluff because some of the information out there is very valuable, but to stick out in a market like that, what are your thoughts initially, and then we'll kind of spitball from there.
Yeah, I think it starts with how intentional you are. So like when you start Googling things, going on YouTube, going on LinkedIn, and you end up realizing, yeah, I want to grow, I want to scale, I want the Rari, I want the penthouse, I want the travel, all that stuff. I mean, that's great, but people don't realize the amount of work necessary. They're not intentional with it, with where they're spending their time. Everybody knows they want that, famous lifestyle or whatever, the glory. They want everybody, like, I haven't yet to meet someone who's like, I don't want to be richer, thinner, younger, faster, whatever. Like they want all those outcomes, but they have not thought about the work, the grind, the intentionality of what needs to happen. So before you get anywhere, it all starts with mindset, and you need to really unlock your own mindset potential to
Mhm.
understand what that intentional plan looks like before you can go get that dream outcome you're trying to go for.
So as you're talking about mindset, which I think everybody for the audience, we've had conversation like this already, and as you kind of said, everybody wants that. They want that higher frequency of lifestyle. They want the Rari. They want to be able to take, like for me personally, and I'm pretty sure you'd be kind of the same. When I
Mhm.
start to see success in the logistics industry, I just want to take care of my people. So I want to take care of my mom. Like I retired both my parents. My sister, she's doing her thing and everything like that. My wife, I want to do that inner circle, and then I start to like look to give, like to serve to other people and things like that. But that's a different conversation from there. But when you talk about mindset, do you believe in the mindset of, if you want to be that person, so if you want to be that $100 million rep, essentially, do you believe that you should have those qualities, like exude that to like the universe, or you should start doing those things? What are your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah. One of my biggest mentors is Kevin Dorsey. KD is also a client of mine, but he says if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? And it's
Mm,
so simple, but it's so provocative. It's so deep. So if you want to live that lifestyle, right? If that you to unlock that next level of yourself to become better, but you haven't spent time mastering your craft. You haven't spent time focusing on where you need to improve. How are you possibly going to unlock that next level of yourself? Right? If you're still doing the same thing today that gives you certain results, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. It's about being different and self improvement. You're only competing against yourself in this mindset game, right?
mm.
If you're not ready to actually make the change for energy levels, quality of craft, being vulnerable, being open, trying to improve your game, you're never going to get to that next level. So if nothing changes, nothing changes. And that's something that a lot of people need to hear and truly internalize before they start unlocking their next step.
I couldn't agree with that more. And shout out to KD, because like that is such a great quote. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck in the, either whether it be the paralysis analysis, or hey, I'll start on Monday. It's like a diet, right? Like I can't wait to see
I
those
got
new
tomorrow.
posts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. New year, new me. We'll see that in a couple months.
Yeah,
Or like
yeah,
page
exactly.
one of 365. And I'm just such a, like, I look at those things and I'm like, why don't you just get started today? You kind of get that mindset. Once we talk about mindset and setting those goals, and you have that clear path, okay, these are the things I want to be, how specific do you recommend people to kind of go into their actual specific goals? Because
It's
there's a difference, sorry to interrupt, but there's a difference
no, no,
between
no.
saying I want to make $10,000 a month versus I need to make 2,000 calls to generate this. Sorry, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
No, no, that's exactly where I was going, right? So you've got this big pinnacle goal or your big, let's call it like your ultimate goal is like, oh, I want to buy my own house, or I want to make X amount of money, or I want to retire my parents, whatever that number is. You need to be able to quantify something. It can't just be like this feeling. Like you need to work towards something intentional. Our brains are way more likely to go towards something that's more specific because it's now attainable. We've now transcended from the emotional part of your brain to the logical part of your brain, and both need to work in tandem in order for you to actually get somewhere. So let's say you've set this goal of I need to make $1 million next year, right? Then you got to take a look at what is it that you sell. Do you even have the ability to make that with your commission structure and things of that nature? Some people get capped out, but some people work in industries where it's truly up to you. It's
Yeah.
truly up to you for what you get, right? So if you're in one of those industries where the mill is truly possible, then you got to break down the numbers game. Well, $1 million means I got to close this much each month. Okay, if you want to close that many deals this month, you got to take a look at what's your average sales cycle, what's the number of calls you typically need to get the meeting, how many meetings you need to get to that opportunity, and then how what's your likelihood to close a real opportunity. Once you know those different, I call them micro milestones. You need to know what your micro milestones are in order to hit that big pinnacle number that we just talked about. A lot of people, when I talk to them, they're like, Aneesh, I want to make 1 million, but they don't know the rest of the numbers we just went through.
Yeah.
They don't know about all those different things. So I'm like, you don't even know what activity. And if you're not intentional with your activity, you'll never hit your end goal. You don't even know what you're chasing. You're just going through the motions. You're one of those reps that I hate to say it. smiles and dials. How many times have we heard that one, right? Smile and dial, baby. You good. You good.
Yeah.
No, you're not good. If you're just smiling and dialing and that's the sales leadership you're under, give me a call because that's the first person I'm going to go help. But the reality is like you need to know the numbers you're chasing and you need to know why you're doing what you're doing before you start any activity on any day.
Yeah, and I want the audience to really take that into, like, really digest that. Know why you're doing what you're doing, right? Don't say that because in our industry, Anish, like in the logistics industry, we are a smile and dial. You go
100%.
over, I call it the logistics Instagram, I'm sorry, LinkedIn crowd, and you got your influencers there. But smile and dial. Like I read a post a couple days ago where it's like, what advice in 3 words or less would you give to like newer reps coming in? And a lot of them said smile and dial, and I was like, no, like for me
That
personally, I
hurt.
commented, I was like, play the long game. It just doesn't work that way. And logistics, I know it's sales, sorry, with the B2B sales, it could be a little bit different, but it's still the same conversations you're having. It's still the same relationships you're trying to build with somebody and have them earn your trust, essentially.
Yeah.
Anish, can you take the audience through a journey a little bit? Like you mentioned, you work at Pinterest last year. So you were the corporate, like you said, mentioned Weather Network, Coca-Cola, and then deciding to, like, you know what, I really want to do something on my own. Was there anything I want to talk, like you mentioned mindset, so I'd love to get into there. Like, was there any part of it that you were like maybe imposter syndrome kind of creeped in, or when you realized, like, a paycheck wasn't coming in every 2 weeks and you had to eat everything? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, anyone who wants that solopreneur life, it typically happens for like one of two reasons, right? One is like you want to make more money and you're entering you're sort of going into an area where you control your destiny a bit more because it's truly you, it's whatever you bring in is what you bring in. That's it, right? So you're putting a massive bet on yourself. But the more popular reason I've seen, especially since COVID, has been time freedom. People don't want to work on other people's terms, or they want to be able to do what they do on their terms. They want to be able to do that remote digital nomad thing, like, oh, I'm going to work from Mexico, then Japan, then whatever. They want to travel and see the world. I'm beginning to see more and more of that die out, but that's like usually the number one reason people wanted to start their own thing. So for me, was a combination, right? I always had side hustle clients. I did not jump in blindly to the solopreneur game. And anyone thinking about going in blind, please, unless you come for money, just like really think hard about that. But for me, I had side hustle clients who were demanding more of my time, right? And even now, like I think in year one, we hit 420K, which is a
Nice.
was a fun first year, and most of that comes back to me without looking at my costs and things like that. But it's like if you're not thinking about what's like what's truly motivating you. So for me, it was that time freedom. It was the ability to make money on my terms, things like that. You're gonna just be very transactional, even as a solopreneur. So
Mhm.
my only advice to anyone here on that journey is make sure you know why you're doing what you're doing because that's what's going to fuel you. You only share the wins with yourself. You don't have that team and sales team that you might be working with right now to share wins with. So that personal journey you're on needs to fuel you the whole time, all the way through.
All the way through. And first and foremost, congratulations on year one being like extremely successful. And it just kind of sets the bar for yourself. And like you said, I know, as like as a Hindu, sometimes it sucks to say this, but like I'm like, what, with sales and being a commission rep, it's like you eat what you kill, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, from our end here. And when we kind of look at these things, it's very similar. Like in logistics, we're all, well, most of us, like I'm a sales agent, 100% commission. So I wake up, if I don't make a call and I get my sales numbers at the end of the month, the only person to blame is myself. I can't blame
Yeah.
ops. I can't blame customer service. I can't blame any of the other sales guys. It's truly on me. In terms of like setting goals for yourself, as strictly as a salesperson, Anish, like you mentioned, you look at the reasons why you want to do it. You look at the activities, and then you really get to work. From there, you got to do your daily grind and everything like that. When do you review like your goals to kind of be like, okay, especially the first year in your business? When was that? What did that look like? Is it like a monthly thing? Is it a weekly thing? Is it a quarterly thing? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it depends on the type of goal. So if I take a look at momentum towards the big pinnacle goal once a month, and then those micro milestones I was talking about to really keep an idea about like your day to day activity. What are the core things you have to do on a daily basis to get to those micro milestones, and then how many of those micro milestones hit so that we're that much closer to our pinnacle goal, right? Those micro ones I look at every Sunday.
Okay.
I'll have the football game on now because thank God NFL's back, and then now I'm just like, okay, great. And then I just take a look at my day to day activities. Like, am I doing the type of activity that I intentionally set out to do? And you're always going to get curveballs and things come up during the week where none of us have a crystal ball, but for the most part, you want to get that activity out. Now, the reason why this goal setting is so important, and even the micro daily activity piece is so important. We never talk about this. It's like it's one thing to know what you're trying to go towards,
Hmm.
but it's another thing entirely to see the numbers in front of you and say, holy God, if I just change this one thing,
Yeah.
I can transform the game. And I'll give you an example. So for me, this is years ago. I realized that my cold calling numbers, like my connect to meeting ratio, was just shit. Like it was not doing well. And what I mean by that on the call, folks, is when you call somebody and then you land the meeting. Okay, like you cold call somebody brand new and you land the meeting. That number for me was not great. So what I ended up realizing, because I now had the data, again, intentionality leads to this path. When I now that I had the data, I knew if I spend my discretionary time instead of watching Netflix, playing video games, and we'll go if we can talk about this later. I have this whole time audit exercise that I can recommend to the audience later. But um, once I realized what my discretionary time was, I was like, you know what? If I just doubled down my cold calling skills, signed up for some courses, did some role playing, and I leveled that up, and I worked on that connect rate ratio, the rest of my numbers and all the other effort that I'm putting in LinkedIn and cold email, all those types of things, it now changed. I actually bring back a lot more time. So I realized if I just invest in myself on this one metric, it unlocks the rest of the game for me. It helps me accelerate how fast I reach my goals. But you can't get to that stage until you know what your numbers are.
Couldn't agree more. And like, yeah, I would love that exercise to share with the team and everybody who's watching out there. Like as Anish said, his cold calling numbers and connecting those meetings, it wasn't great. So what did he do? He invested in himself and he did that continuous learning. Like for myself, Anish, like I've realized that cold calls is not. I'm not a big fan of cold calls, but there's other alternatives. So what I
Mhm.
do is that I use SendSpark as a video. I love sending video, doing this podcast. I've been doing videos for almost like 12 to 15 years on like a YouTube capacity. But for me, I enjoy that. I enjoy that one to one. And then I
Mhm.
realized that, hey, my emails, I don't know how it is in B2B, but in logistics emails, Anish, it's very like, hi, my name is, I work at this company. We have 100 trucks in your area. Like, it's just like this canned email that is like so
Right.
garbage. So what did I do? I went to lavender.ai, signed up for an account, and then it's just been off to the races, just it's sometimes when I copy and paste it into the editor, I'm like, is this email real? Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't even make sense. It's so simple, right? And then I send it and I get a reply back. So how many times are we overthinking it? And I think that's spectacular for all of us to kind of look at, whether it be a sales challenge or that continuous learning and improvement. I want to talk because you mentioned about like celebrating the wins for yourself, like as being a business owner, or whether it be on a team and things like that. What are your thoughts on something like delayed gratification? Because you talked about those micro goals. You said you look at them every Sunday. Are you celebrating them as they happen, or you're kind of like, okay, well, when I hit two or three of these, I'm getting closer to that monumental goal, as you mentioned, then you kind of celebrate. I'd love the audience to kind of get that.
Yeah, for me, consistency is a big part, especially when you're running your own business. Like I can have like a record breaking month, like, oh, I made 100 grand in one month. Like, oh, that's amazing. But if the next 4 months you're making like 5 G's a month, that 100 grand month no longer it doesn't feel that powerful anymore. So
Mhm.
there needs to be a consistency play to it where okay, when you hit $300,000 months, then you've already crushed last year's number. You've already, there's a lot of like science behind it, but you need to have I think a more of a volume play, not just one absolute win. Depending on your scenario, like you might be like maybe one of your personal goals is like, I want to be able to deadlift a certain amount or lift a certain amount. Okay, great. When that one thing happens, fine, go celebrate that. But for me, when it comes to everything else, when it comes to sales, business, mindset, there has to be a one time might be lucky, two
Mhm.
times okay, you're onto something, and then three, it's like okay, you're getting there. You've
Yeah.
now unlocked a whole other self capability, which means that whatever we're working on, those micro milestones, it's leading to something consistently good, and that's when I tend to celebrate. I'm a big believer in the power of three. So when something happens 3 times for me, I'm like, hey, you know what? We might be onto something here. Now I'm like, all right, baby, buy the shoes. Let's do this. We're good.
You
We're
know,
good.
I love that you said that. We had an episode a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago talking about the power theme, but I've never thought about that. But it's funny you say that because for the audience out there, like my wife, she's on her third like Louis Vuitton bag now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like let's
Yeah. Yeah.
keep that going. But I love that. I want to talk about a little bit about that because I want everybody in the audience to go follow Aneesh on Instagram because I love like your videos, how short form they are, and like you give us a glimpse, a peek into your life, and you know there's a difference between like creep lifestyle and actually living it, right? And you're
Right.
somebody that I look at, I'm like, no, this guy's truly like living the life that he wants to live. What has like sales done for you? Because like you said, you grew up in Mississauga. I would assume like we're probably like the same kind of upbringing. Immigrant parents. They came here, they hustled, they
Yes.
did
Yes.
everything, and the 2 vacations a year, and like celebrate different
If
things.
that.
If
Yeah.
that, right? Like that's the thing. So what did that look like? What did your journey come from?
So honestly, man, like you're absolutely right. Like my parents came here. I actually immigrated. I'm from. I was born in India, so I came here when I was 2, and um, my parents went through a lot of sacrifice. Say like my dad started his own business. We've had like terrible months growing up. Like it was like sometimes shit got scary. But dad really transformed his business. I think that's where I got my entrepreneurial itch was from my parents. They've always done their own thing on their terms. But I've also learned about the thing. He had a lot of lessons learned too, which I've seen it growing up. So I'm trying not to repeat some of the mistakes he did. But um, it it's gotten to a point where things have. I remember I took my mom to the mall for her birthday a couple months ago, and she never would have walked into the Versace store. Just not happening, right?
Yeah.
And she walked into that store, and even I hate to say this, but sometimes you see like these sales associates that see a bunch of brown people walk in, and they're like, well, whatever, and they just gave us this look, the same look I get when I go to Harry Rosen. Sometimes they're like, oh, you can't afford this place. What are you doing in here, right? I got this look from the sales associate, saying, you're not even gonna buy anything. That look. And I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
well,
oh,
I think it was what's that movie with Julia Roberts, where she's a prostitute and she goes into one of those and they're like,
yeah,
"No, you
yeah, yeah,
can't afford it."
exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It's like they judge your whole life before you even walk in. So my mom, I was like, Mom, just pick whatever. Like, what do you like, right? And she's like, and then she saw the price tag and she's like, oh no, Niche, you're crazy. There's no chance. I'm like, Mom, please. She goes, okay. It was a start. It was the first store we got to. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we take a lap? There's a whole bunch of other luxury stuff here. Maybe you find something else you like, right? Plus, I
Mhm.
wasn't really feeling that sales associate the way they were just judging us. I was like, whatever. So we go around. We spent 3 hours at this outlet mall, and my mom did like she liked other stuff, but she like that one Versace purse she saw. She's like, oh my god, Anish. I was like, Mom, let's go back before they close. And I have never seen my mom run so fast.
Aw.
And I was like, she was so excited, like a kid going to Disneyland. She's like, so I walked in. I was like, hey, yep, us again. Can we just grab that, please? And boom, the fact that I was able to do that for my mom, she started getting emotional. Like she's like, oh, my friends over, they're gonna be like, oh wow, where'd you get this? Like, is it fake? Like she had all these like things already hitting her in the head. But the fact that sales was able allowed me to do that for my mom just changed the game for me, man. Like that moment was a big moment where I was like, you know what? Like I really hope I can get more people to this level where they
Yeah.
can take care of their family because that's really the goal right there. So yeah, it's one of the more powerful stories for me, like just to keep me going. It was by far one of the best moments of my life with my mom.
Kudos to that. And like you said something there just last that it's like my own personal like life mission is that lift as you climb. And
Yep.
I truly believe that helping others get to that level and things like that. And congratulations, man, because like that is such something that people wish for. And sales, like for me myself, like full transparency, I went to college for accounting and I hated accounting, and I just went from like dead end job to dead end job. I worked in retail. I worked in like a Rogers call center for like 6 7 years and literally going
Yeah.
nowhere, like
Yeah.
having those like 25-cent raises every biannually or whatever. And then I was like, hey man, it'll be really cool. And then I stumbled into logistics. By the way, did you want to get into sales or did you stumble into sales yourself? Because I find a lot of logistics reps, they actually stumble into sales. Like sales
Yeah.
finds them,
Yeah.
but what about you?
For me, so I was very involved in like student government and stuff when I was at Laurier, where I did my undergrad. And I got to know the dean, Ginny Domingo, really well. I always give credit to Ginny for this because I sat down with her and I was like, Ginny, I don't know what the F to do with my life. Like I enjoyed marketing. I was never going to be a finance accounting. Like I knew what I was not going to do.
Mhm.
But my grades will reflect that for you, sure. But for me, it was sort of like, am I marketing? Am I in the revenue? I don't know. And university, there's no sales course. Like you don't. There's no fundamentals on communications or nothing like that. So I was like, I don't know what to do. She goes, Anish, you have sales written all over you, and that's the first time it was introduced to me. I was like, what? I was like, what do you see in sales? Like, I never knew this whole B2B sales side, none of it. I never even thought of it. And she's like, Anish, this is what it is. We have a whole bunch of folks from like these CPG companies like Procter and Gamble, Pepsi, Coke, whatever, coming to campus.
Wow.
I'm going to set you up with all of them, but you are destined for sales and sales leadership and that sort of stuff. I was like, wow, okay, cool. Jenny, if you're saying it, I'll take a look. And that's how I got into to sales. And one thing led to another, and that's how I ended up at Coca-Cola. But yeah, I give full credit to me getting into sales to Jenny DeBinko in that one conversation.
That is spectacular. That's such a cool though. That story, I don't know what's better, that or your mom's story, but I think that it's spectacular. To hear that from everybody out there. There's sometimes you're that person, and you need that push. And if so, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page by going to YouTube and clicking on Sales Chatter Live. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification where you'll get the exclusive notifications every time we go live and upload new podcasts. Now let's continue with this episode. I'm really excited for this for the later this afternoon because for the first time I'll actually be meeting Aneesh in person. So let's peel the curtain a little bit for everybody and make everybody jealous in the audience today. What's going on this afternoon?
All right, so this Thursday we got none other than Morgan J. Ingram coming into town. So for those who don't know Morgan, he's one of LinkedIn's top sales voices. Morgan, Jen Allen Knuth, and Will Aiken. So these three amazing LinkedIn titans are coming into the LinkedIn HQ in Toronto. 150 people. It's already sold out full. Like, sorry, y'all, if you're just hearing about it, we'll do more later. But Morgan and I are putting on this event called Amp Up. And the whole point of the conference, the whole point of the day is to be the one. Be the one in your friends group who's zigging when everyone else zags. Be the one at work who's crushing it with their sales goals, and not just the douchebag guy who's like, I'm the best. The person who like elevates everyone around them. That's really what it means to be the one. And when it comes down to it, we're going to go through 3 talk tracks. So Morgan's going to talk about Sales Navigator. We are at the LinkedIn HQ after all, and Sales Nav has been a huge part of any sales reps I know success. Jennifer Allen Knuth, who's just leaving Lavender now, she is going to be talking about sales in 2023. What's the right way to get people's attention and keep that attention in 2023? And then Will Aiken, who's like one of the best content creators, if not the best content creator in the B2B SaaS space. He's going to be talking about content production. So if you combine all 3 of those talk tracks, it's something really dangerous that we're sharing with people. Like that's the missing formula. So for all of you who are looking to crush Q4 and all of next year, stay tuned. We are going to find ways to get this information out to folks, but just stay tuned. It's going to be great.
And I love that your first event's in Toronto. So I'm gonna be
Me
able,
too.
like, for me, I'm fangirly. Like I've been following Morgan since I came to Wellington Group of Companies. So that was about 4 years ago because I've built my book of business at the previous 2 places. I was like, there has to be some similarities between the SaaS world and logistics world, and I've just been taking little things about that. And like I said, every time I see Morgan posts, like Instagram, whatever, I'm like, like this guy is so dope.
Morgan,
So I'm gonna be excited to see everybody in person there. Let's talk a little bit about the Wishley Group. Tell them, like we mentioned early in the conversation, we've talked about it throughout our conversation here, but it's essentially, you're helping out small businesses, but you don't just stop there. You want to help people change their lives. But yeah, tell everybody a little bit more about the Wishley Group.
Yeah, in a nutshell, we help small, medium-sized companies build out their modern day revenue engine. And I want modern day to be there because a lot of folks tend to treat sales in one silo, marketing in another. So, because of my history working with the Weather Network and Pinterest, I've worked with a lot of brands and selling to VPs of marketing and CMOs from the biggest brands and companies you can think of. I've learned from that. So, taking the marketing element and the sales element that I've gotten really good at, combining that's really how you garner and get people's attention in 2023 and beyond. So that's really where we provide the most consulting and the most advice. Um, the part of my business that's taken off the most is the sales coaching side, the sales training side. I'm now working with companies to train up their teams, but there is always that nuance of marketing and bringing them into the mix that's part of my equation. So that's really what the Wish the Group's about, just helping you build out your modern day revenue engine. And when it comes to the people I get to work with and connect with, like Ryan, you and I hit it off right from an Instagram conversation. So like I love that. Um, you just learn to put yourself out there in all these different channels and you attract like-minded individuals. And that's how Brian and I even got better acquainted, and so pumped to see you later today, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun, and thank you for that. If anybody in the audience, you definitely fit. They're looking for something like this right now in their life. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can follow me on Instagram, Aneesh_L, or they can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. So if you want to follow to get more sales tips, sales advice, definitely go there. If you just want to talk about your own journey, going from, maybe a 9 to 5 to going to your side hustle to going, full time, I'm happy to share my experience and story as well. But those are the best places to get me.
Awesome. So, Anish, can't thank you so much enough for being on this episode, sharing with a brand new audience on our end here and sharing your amazing story. So, good luck to everything that you do in the future. And like I said, I'm personally looking forward to seeing you later. And you know what, man, let's check in next year if you'd like to come back on the podcast and see where you're at and where Wishly Group is at.
100%, man. Appreciate the time. And I hope the audience got a lot of value today. Cheers.
All right, take care, everybody. So, with that being said, that is the end of Sales Chatter Live. We'll see you guys tomorrow as we get back into. I think we're doing chapter 1 of Book Club Fridays, and everybody knows that Dan got into that video. So, with that being said, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Everybody, go crush your sales and start killing it.